I'm 32. My younger sister, Meline, is 30. And I've spent most of my life in her shadow. If you've ever been the lesser sibling, the one people forget to introduce, the one parents speak over, or worse, through, then you already know what this story feels like. Growing up, it was always Meline this and Meline that. She was beautiful, not just in the cute kid way. She had the kind of face that made strangers stop and comment. I remember once, when we were teenagers, someone at a wedding told my mom, "Your younger daughter could be a model." I was standing right next to them. My mom smiled, didn't say anything about me. That was the moment I realized my role in the family. Background noise. Meline was smart too, but so was I. The difference was, her wins were showcased. When she got a good grade, we went out for ice cream. When I got an even better one, I got a polite nod and a reminder to thank the teacher. When she had a piano recital, the entire family showed up, dressed in coordinated colors. When I won a statewide art competition, they forgot the date. My dad texted me congrats the next morning. It was like being the supporting actress in a movie that you thought was supposed to be yours too, but the poster only had one face. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't jealous of Meline. Okay, maybe sometimes I was. But mostly, I just wanted my parents to care. Not to compete. Not to outshine. Just to be noticed. They said they loved us both equally. But love doesn't always look equal when one kid gets a parade and the other gets silence. By the time I hit my late 20s, I had stopped sharing my wins with them. Got a promotion? I'd tell my friends. Bought my first apartment? I told my therapist before I told my mom. I started shrinking parts of myself to avoid the awkwardness. And then, I met someone. And for once, everything changed. He wasn't flashy. He didn't come from money. But he listened to me. Every boring story, every anxious spiral, every quiet hope I was too afraid to speak aloud. We fell in love, slowly and steadily. And after 2 years together, he proposed in the middle of our messy kitchen, holding a flour-dusted ring box with pancake batter on his shirt. It wasn't perfect. It was real. And for the first time in a long time, I thought, I can finally have something of my own. A life that's not in her shadow. I told my parents that weekend. We were at a family brunch, Meline sitting there with her perfect posture and her perfect makeup, scrolling Instagram. I said it casually, not to make a scene. I have news. I'm engaged. Silence. My dad blinked. My mom raised her eyebrows. Meline looked up for exactly 2 seconds and said, "Wow, that's fast." My mom finally spoke. "Well, have you told Meline yet? I mean, her wedding is still on hold because of venue issues. Won't it look strange?" And I knew, right then, that this wouldn't go the way I'd hoped. After that brunch, I kept waiting for my parents to say something, anything about the engagement. A call. A message. Congratulations, even if forced. But all I got was silence. Weeks passed. My fiancé's parents were already offering to help. His mom even started scouting venues with me. Meanwhile, my own mother hadn't asked a single question about the dress, the date, or even his name. It wasn't that they didn't support me, it was worse. They were pretending it wasn't happening. I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they were overwhelmed. Maybe they were still thinking of Meline's long-postponed wedding. Maybe, just maybe, they'd come around. But then came the moment that snapped whatever illusion I had left. It was during a Sunday lunch at their house. I mentioned we'd booked a venue, and my mom's face, I'll never forget it, went blank. Not surprised. Not happy. Just calculating. "You sure you don't want to wait until your sister sets her date? It might be awkward otherwise." Awkward? I'd been engaged for months. I blinked. "Mom, we've waited long enough. I love him. We're ready." She looked at my dad, who gave a non-committal shrug. And then she said, "Just make sure it doesn't look like you're trying to beat her to the altar." That was the moment I realized they weren't neutral. They were against it. Not because they didn't like my fiancé. Not because we weren't ready. But because I dared to go first. Because I, the lesser daughter, was getting married before their perfect Meline. So, I made a choice. I moved forward without them. My fiancé, and I set the date. His parents helped with everything, from tasting cakes to reviewing seating charts. They were warm, involved, present. Everything mine never were. I still sent out the invites, including one to my parents and one to Meline. I even hand-delivered them. I watched my mom place the envelope on her kitchen counter like it was junk mail. She never opened it while I was there. A week before the wedding, I sent them a message. Just a simple text. Hope to see you there. It would mean the world to me. No reply. 3 days before. Silence. Morning of the wedding? Nothing. I walked down the aisle without a father on my arm. But I didn't walk alone. My fiancé's dad stepped up, tears in his eyes, proud to be there for me. And when I looked out at the crowd, my parents' seats were empty. They didn't come. No explanation. No emergency. No phone call. Just a giant silence, sitting where my family should have been. And even then, even after all that, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd call the next day. Say they were sorry. Say something. But what I got instead was gaslighting. The day after the wedding, I stared at my phone waiting. Some part of me, the part that still wanted their love, hoped they'd call. That they'd say, "We're sorry we missed it. We regret not coming." But when the screen finally lit up, it wasn't an apology. It was a long message from my mother. Cold. Sharp. Blaming. "We never received your invitation. You must have forgotten to send it. It's not our fault you were disorganized. We didn't even know the date until too late. You should have made more of an effort. And, to be honest, it's incredibly hurtful that you would schedule your wedding before your sister's. That shows a real lack of consideration." I stared at the screen in disbelief. They were rewriting the story like they always did. As if I hadn't hand-delivered the invitation. As if I hadn't sent reminders. Reached out. Begged. As if I had somehow ruined their happiness by daring to choose mine. And then came the final knife twist. "It just feels like you were trying to hurt Meline. And that's something we never expected from you." That was the moment something inside me snapped. Not with rage, but with clarity. I sat down and wrote back. Not a rant. Not an explosion. Just the truth, the kind I had swallowed for decades. "You didn't forget my wedding. You ignored it. You've been ignoring me my whole life, unless I was convenient or quiet or useful. I never tried to hurt Meline. I only ever tried to be seen alongside her. But no matter what I did, I was always too late, too loud, too average. You didn't lose an invitation. You lost a daughter who finally stopped begging to be included." I hit send, and I blocked the chat. But the drama wasn't over yet, because a week later, my husband showed me something that made my blood go cold. A message. From Meline. It had been a week since the wedding. We were still unpacking gifts and thank you cards when my husband walked into the room holding his phone. He looked confused and a little annoyed. Did you know your sister messaged me?" My heart sank. "What? What did she say?" He handed me his phone. And there it was. A DM from Meline. Polite on the surface. But I could smell the venom under every word. "Hey, I just wanted to say congratulations. Though I admit, I was a little surprised you went through with the wedding. It all felt very rushed, don't you think? Then, I just hope you're sure this wasn't about trying to get ahead of me. Rebecca's always been a little emotional and impulsive." And finally, "Anyway, I'm sure she'll settle down now that she's got what she wanted. Let me know if you ever want to talk. Sometimes it helps having someone neutral to vent to." Neutral. My sister. Offering to listen to my husband like she was some kind of relationship coach, or worse, a backup plan. I was stunned. But my husband? He laughed. Like, genuinely laughed. "She thinks I'd talk to her? After seeing how they treated you?" He blocked her right in front of me. "Your sister doesn't need therapy. She needs to realize the world doesn't revolve around her." I just stood there, staring at him. Not because of Meline, but because I finally felt protected. I had spent most of my life shrinking, apologizing, softening myself just to keep the peace. Now, I was with someone who saw all of me and chose to stand by me anyway. And it got better. Because that message, that little slip, it didn't stay private for long. Apparently, Meline had tried to check in on multiple people after the wedding. A cousin, an uncle, even one of my bridesmaids. Always with the same passive-aggressive tone. Always implying something was wrong with me. But instead of turning people against me, she exposed herself. People started talking, comparing messages, realizing how toxic this all had been from the beginning. And slowly, quietly, something started to shift. The perfect image of our family began to crack. At first, the cracks were small. An aunt quietly skipped Meline's bridal shower. A cousin removed her from the group chat. No drama. No big scene. Just quiet exits. Like people were slowly waking up from a long, uncomfortable dream. And then came the tipping point. My mom tried to organize a brunch, some kind of pre-wedding celebration for Meline. She invited the usual relatives, the ones who used to flock to any event that had our family's name on it. But only 3 people showed up. 3. The rest either declined or just didn't respond. I didn't go, of course. I hadn't spoken to my parents or Meline since the message fiasco. But the stories made their way to me. An uncle apparently told my mom, to her face, "You've made it impossible to support both daughters. And some of us are tired of pretending we don't see the difference." That sentence, spoken out loud, finally, seemed to shatter whatever was left of the fantasy my parents had spent years building. The image of a flawless golden child. The idea that favoritism had no consequences. It all crumbled in one brunch. Meanwhile, my life? Peaceful. My in-laws had become my family in every way that mattered. We spent weekends together. They asked about my job, my hobbies, my mental health, things my parents had never once bothered to check in on. My husband stood by me like a wall, silent when I needed space, fierce when I needed backup. And I started healing. I still think about it sometimes. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. How many years I spent trying to be good enough, polite enough, quiet enough, perfect enough to earn their love. But I've realized something now. I was never the problem. I was just inconvenient to the story they wanted to tell. And once I stopped playing the part they wrote for me, they didn't know what to do with me anymore. So I rewrote my own story. One without golden children. Without forced smiles and unspoken rules. Just truth, peace, and the kind of love that never asks you to shrink. Sometimes the family you're born into is too broken to fix. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away, not to hurt them, but to save yourself.